Hey.
Hello, Darren Bush. Good to see you.
You too.
It's really nice to connect in person again. I definitely, now at this stage, feel that I've gotten to know you on a personal level, in addition to just the Canoecopia business side of things. And I really appreciate that has developed both through the podcast, our shared experiences about the Boundary Waters, talking about some hard things, including my near-death experience in the Boundary Waters, and having very candid conversations about that. So I appreciate that, and I also bring that up because I know other people who attend Canoecopia, from presenters to people who have a booth, say similar things, that you develop connections with the people who come to the event. And I think that's probably largely unseen or perhaps unknown by most of the attendees who come. And I just wanted to acknowledge that because I think it's a really cool thing, Darren.
No, thank you. I try and be, I hate the word authentic. It's like, oh yeah, he's really authentic. It's like, you know how exhausting it is to be two people, right? And I've got some people that I'm acquainted with who they call it code switching, right? Where they're like one person and then someone else comes along and then suddenly it's like, whoa, that's jarring, right?
Yes, I know of what you're speaking about. In other words, there's either like a public side, and then once the public kind of goes away, there's this like, gosh, get the whiskey and the cigarettes, and how about the fools that we've been dealing with? Or even like more chameleon like than that, where somebody's just speaks to you this way, and then if my other friend entered, I'd suddenly be this other kind of character in a play.
Yeah, I'm that's too tiring. So I'm just kind of me all the time, and
cool.
Everywhere I go, I don't swear in church on purpose, but if I'm in church and someone says something's BS, I'll say, yeah, I think it's BS.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm like, no, dude, it was BS out there, it's BS in here.
Yeah, I got you. So, yeah. I got you.
Anyway.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Canoecopia right up front, obviously. That's the focus of this episode of the podcast and in our correspondence and so forth. But Canoecopia, world's largest paddling expo, or North America's largest paddling expo. What is Canoecopia? Tell us what it is.
A friend of mine, it's probably about 20 years ago, he said, if a Voyager got in a time machine and went forward, 400 years, they go, oh, it's a rendezvous. So you think about it, what were rendezvous for? It's for doing commerce, right? You got to sell your furs and get money and all that, and then go drink and gamble.
Yeah, you're also there's the social,
right,
celebratory aspect of it.
So it's getting together with the people that you love, and your friends and your the community. Mm-hmm. That word comes up a lot in my world. Community is super important to me, and you do this really cool thing for 3 days. And is there commerce involved? Yeah, there has to be. Someone's got to pay the bills, but the primary reason I do it is because it's a rendezvous. Mm-hmm. And the educational component of Rutabaga, of Rutabaga and of Canoecopia, is the most important thing to me. We need to teach people there's a Latin phrase, didactare ut docere, which means to delight in order to teach. So we try and make this delightful so people will learn, because the stern none with the ruler lecture doesn't really help anybody, right?
Yeah, someone who went to a Catholic church Catholic school and church growing up, I know what you mean.
Dominicans? Dominicans they're hardcore. They use yardsticks, not rulers. Right?
No, I think there's more rulers, but I'm not sure about
But it's rote. It's this is how you learn, right? Yeah. Well, we all know now that there's as many learning styles as there are people, right? Mm-hmm. Some people are auditory, some people are visual. So we try and have people that give people opportunities to learn things in many different ways. Mm-hmm. Lecture format works great for some people. Some people need to see images. So that's the fun part of the show, is finding people that want to share their stories in different ways. Mm-hmm. And some of them are raging introverts.
The presenters, the people who are now up in front of a group of people.
But they do it because the impulse to tell the story and to share that is greater than their discomfort with being in a room full of people. and you see them and they get off stage, you're like, oh, I'm exhausted, I need to go someplace and be alone. I'm like, I get you.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Yeah. So Rutabaga, when you say Rutabaga, that's Rutabaga Paddle Sports. It's in Madison,
Yep.
and that's the canoe gear paddle shop that you own and operate in Madison. And then the event Canoecopia, what's the intersection of Rutabaga and Canoecopia?
So Canoecopia started as Meet the Folks That Build the Boats. So basically, Mike Chickanowski would pull in the parking lot with 12 boats, and Roy Gwynn from Blue Hole would pull in with a trailer full of boats. And
Mike from Winona.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they'd have a little party at the shop. Well, it got to be bigger and bigger, and then at some point they moved off-site into the old Dane County Fairgrounds, which was this dumpy building that was falling apart, and the hockey arena across the street that was also falling apart. Well, at some point, 1994, the county scraped off the whole thing and built the Alliant Energy Center.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, I just started working for the previous owner. And before that, Canoecopia was like a yellow pad with a bunch of squares and numbers. Say, okay, just set up wherever you want.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really work for me. So I said, I'm taking this. You go do whatever you want, but I'm going to run this. And we had like one speaker that was behind a drape where you could hear everything, and it was usually the same people saying the same things. And we moved in this new spot, and I said, no, we're going to do this right, and we're going to recruit good speakers that are going to tell their stories. We're going to, make sure that we have a wide variety. So we have things like, how to paddle in the Yukon. That's cool, but most people aren't going to paddle the Yukon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also know how to freeze dry your own food, or how to dehydrate your own food. That's something that anybody can use, even if they're not going to paddle, right? It's cool. So we try and have a broad spectrum. So I turned it into an organized event. And before, it was kind of like buy a bunch of cheap stuff, discounted a lot, make giant piles of stuff with handwritten signs. And it was kind of like a big garage sale. And the most boring word in English language is sale.
And that was for a 1 day. Was it like a 1 day?
No, it was 3 days.
Okay, I see.
But it wasn't a rendezvous.
Mm-hmm.
It was a sale. I wanted to create a community. Well, we wanted to create a community. It's we. It's not I. That would bring people together, paddlers, or people that are paddling adjacent, or people who want to be paddlers, or anybody who's interested in the outdoors. They don't have to be a paddler to come to the show. They can come and go to stuff about dehydrating food and buy camping gear and just not, pay attention to the canoe and kayak stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, because why would you go to the Vatican and not see the art?
Yeah, right.
It's all there. It got turned more and more into a community event with the sales component rather than a giant sale.
Yeah, I got it. And there's definitely that vibe. I mean, so we're sort of speaking right now to people who haven't been to Canoecopia,
Right.
In the sense of what is it? It's a place where there's merchandise available. There's a retail side of it, as you said, but there's also this presenter. There's people that are sharing these things, as you're talking about, a variety of topics. And then there's just the mingling of hanging out with each other for a few days. These people who are interested in places like the Boundary Waters, the rivers of the Midwest, the rivers of Ontario, lakes, parks in Ontario, all over North America. So there's like that aspect of it that's happening a little more organically than a presenter at a time slot. There's that.
Right.
And it's not necessarily just like some after hours, like in the evenings. It's throughout the whole 3-4 days that we're there, And I think that's the coolest part of it for the people who have been multiple times, is that it's new every year in the sense of reconnecting. But how was your last year of paddling? I did this, I did that,
Right. Exactly. Yeah, we have 9 speaker rooms that run for the whole show every hour and a half hour.
Yeah.
So if there's something you want to learn, there's someone talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But like clubs, like the your followers, the Canoe Country Bulletin Board, the used to be paddling.net. I don't think that really is happening anymore. But the used to be people would like wear their screen names so people could find them. They'd find themselves, and then they would go over to the Clarion next door and sit around at night and play music. And so there is a a subculture there.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Canoecopia culture, but there's also the people that are in groups. So paddling clubs from all over will meet there and have their time together. And some of them even like will rent a room at the hotel next door and have a little reception or a party.
Right. Yeah. It's a very social atmosphere for days that goes on. And you mentioned something about there's some of the presenters who aren't public speakers by any degree and get up and do these presentations. You don't have to name names unless they have a good sense of humor about it. But is there anybody over the years you've been doing this, decades, that just totally bombed or like had a really bad experience?
Like bad experience speaking?
Yeah, like it didn't work, or they just like totally missed the mark, or they were like, I panicked and I freaked out.
No, that doesn't happen unless they're woefully underprepared.
Yeah.
And we collect feedback on speakers, and if they, get a bunch of 3s out of 5s and they're not, unprepared, whatever, it's like, sorry, I can't have you back. The worst was a guy who came and he didn't understand the assignment, right?
Okay.
You talk about where you work, so like an outfitter, so like Steve Nelson and Jimmy Nelson will come
At Spirit of the Wilderness.
right, and they'll talk about the Boundary Waters, but it's not an infomercial for them. It's not like, hey, you need to come to us so you'll have a bad experience. It's like they just talk about a place they love, right?
The Boundary Waters.
The Boundary Waters,
Yeah.
right?
So they get it. In other words, you're saying
they understand the assignment, which is to instill love. Now, if they share 50 minutes of information about these pictographs or whatever, people are going to naturally want to go to them and talk to them about it, and we'll use their services, right?
Yeah, so they make the connection between that the presentation can be about your business, but you don't have to ram it down the throat.
No,
so
exactly.
what happened to this dude or whoever it is?
But furthermore, when you do that, people complain.
Yeah.
Like, so this guy was from an outfitter I won't mention, not in the Northwoods, but he came and he's like, I want to talk about our outfitting and how cool we are, and here's all the places.
Now for $89 a day, you get a Kevlar, and then we'll transport you here.
It was bad.
Yeah.
And like half an hour into it, someone found me and said, you need to come over here and stop this right now.
No way.
Dude.
like pull the cord.
Yeah.
Holy
So anyway, he finished. The people started walking out after 10 minutes and just left because they saw what was going on.
Wow.
And they understand that the community is super important. And when someone comes in and it's all about them, well, they're done, right? And there's people who aren't great public speakers. Bear Paulson is fantastic. He does all these many things. He's not the most dynamic speaker, but people don't care because the content is beautiful and authentic because it's his experience. It's not him just talking out of some orifice. He's the guy, and he doesn't have to be a talk show host. He can be him.
Yeah, right.
Mona, who does the dehydrated food thing, she's this quiet, just sweet person who just goes about doing her thing, and people love to listen to it. And she has a little bit of a following, which makes her incredibly uncomfortable.
Right.
And I love that most of our speakers are like, I don't really like people putting me on a pedestal, and I totally get that because I get that. You're Mr. Canoecopia. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Right. So you mentioned it sounds like Bear has a pretty good presence there. Ginny and Steve from Spirit of the Wilderness sounds like they kind of get the concept. But are there some people who are just like all stars at the event and are on that top, like they always deliver the goods and hit a home run every time they show up?
Well, Steve and Ginny always hit a home run.
Yeah, right.
Because they're prepared and they want to share their story effectively, not just get up and ramble.
Yeah.
We went to this place and it was cool. It's like that doesn't really do anything for anybody.
Right. Yep.
As far as superstars, there's people that draw a lot. Cliff Jacobson is a draw. This is his last year. He's going to retire and say, he's 83.
In that range, right?
Yeah,
yep. And he's announced publicly, this is my last Canoecopia.
This is my last one. So the last day of the show, he's doing it like a 2-hour presentation.
Yeah.
Like wrapping it all up.
Yep.
Which I think is lovely. He has a cult following. People love to hear Cliff talk. There's other people. Kevin Callan comes down from Ontario, and that guy is Oh, he's funny.
And he's out roaming the halls and doing some YouTube type stuff throughout the event too.
And you know the thing about him is he's exactly the same person when he's presenting as he is in person.
Yeah.
I've been on a canoe trip with him,
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't it's not a shtick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exaggerated a little because it's funny, but he's Kevin.
Yeah.
Right? He's authentic as the day is long.
He's kind of like Suge, the hammock guy in that regard, where, you know, we've gotten to know Suge a little bit over the years, and people are like, you know, is it the same guy I see on YouTube
Same
as
guy.
it is? And it's like, same with Kevin and Suge. Like,
Same.
That's who it is. They can't help. They're not trying to be that way. It's just who they are.
When people do that, I think people have a BS detector.
Mm-hmm.
And when when it's all about them, well, you know, Midwesterners are, you know, you compliment something like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
They don't like that.
All right.
They don't like being the center of attention. They just want to share their story. And frankly, I'm very much like that myself.
Yeah.
Hey, you're Mr. Canoecopia. No, look around. I've got 25 people here that are running it. You know? Ethan and Chloe and you know, Ann, and Dan, and I'm going to forget someone, and you know, Brendan and
The list goes on, right?
I'm just going around the outside of the offices and counting people. You know, but they all have their role, and they're fantastic at it. And John is someone I want to mention. John is never seen at the show because John runs the warehouses during the show. So he's over there in the warehouses, sometimes cold, and you know, we put a camper over there for him to use. One of our local RV dealers gives us a camper to set up so they have a warm place to do their work.
Yeah.
But he's not on the show, but he's vital. He's absolutely critical to the show.
I got it. And so you aren't putting yourself in the spotlight or obviously you're trying to say this is a group effort to make this thing go, but you are very much associated with the event in the sense of you have a presence there, you're making the rounds. And I think that's probably, as you heard in the intros and as I shared with you, Darren, like when Baxi runs India this summer on the Portage and tells me about it, and it was a big part of that trip, and you know, you had this connection right there on Monument Portage, right? It was, and but then afterward, like as we're setting up the podcast, and hey, I'm meeting with Darren, we're doing a Canoecopia episode, you know, the description of you is that you're this towering, large, powering figure, and I kind of paused. I mean, I let, you know, we're making the recording, so I just kind of let it go. But I'm also kind of like, that's not really my recollection of Darren. I mean, you know,
I'm 6 foot.
Able-bodied paddler, certainly, but not towering. But I think that maybe that's the connection.
That's Bear. Bear's the towering one. No, I'm 6 foot 190. I'm not towering by any stretch.
And so I wondered if it is just because of, you know, that you are so prominent in the paddle sports industry, or the times that we've spoken to you in Madison there, that it's kind of like we're talking to the person in charge type thing, and that connection was made of just Darren's this kind of larger than life figure, or why that happened, I don't know exactly, but nonetheless, that was the takeaway.
Well, I think people like people who are comfortable in their own skin. I don't want to be important. I want to be effective. And the best way to be effective is to take your vision. And clearly, I have visions for how things work and how I want things to work. But that's up here, right? Once that's done, it's the people around me that execute. It's the vendors that come in. It's the exhibitors. It's the speakers. If I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off at Canoecopia trying to solve problems, I failed at my job already. Right? So we're finishing up the Canoecopia show guide right now. I'm leaving for Baja for the paddle trip on Wednesday. I come back and there's 2 days and then it's going to press. Yep. And I can leave because I know the people that are in charge are going to execute.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so we have been sharing publicly since November, December timeframe that Paddle and Portage is the media partner for Canoecopia this year. And what does that look like for you? What does that mean for you and for us? You know, what should people expect in terms of deliverables on that? In other words, afterwards, and I can certainly share some of my thoughts. But what do you take away, and why'd you choose us? Well, thank you, by the way. It's a great thing, and we're very honored. So,
well, thank you.
Why'd you choose us, and what's that mean?
Excuse me. I don't know. This made sense. I mean, I make a lot of decisions intuitively, seat of my pants. I didn't do a sort of, okay, if I do this, you do this, and it's going to be this great thing, and it's going to be, I mean, to me, I like to associate with good brands, with good people, and you guys are creating your own brand right now, and that sounds very markety, but, I mean, I don't have anybody at the show that I wouldn't want to paddle with. There's nobody there who makes stuff that I wouldn't use, and I don't want to be associated with people that wouldn't hold up my values. And I knew you guys from WTIP, and I knew you guys from previous things, and I knew that you had integrity, and that you do a good job promoting the show, and we would do a good job promoting you.
Yeah. Cool.
And so it's just a synergistic thing, which is another word I hate. I sound like a marketing dude, and I'm not a marketing dude. I have a degree in Italian lit, so no MBA for this guy.
Yeah, you're headed to the not cathedral's the wrong word. Basilica.
Yeah, on the way out, I saw that up on the hill. I'm like, this looks like Montreal. I need to stop there and check out what's going on there. And so I'm just listening to a book coming up here. On early Renaissance banking. Yeah. You're
into paddling, but you've got these other varied interests, obviously, that don't necessarily align with, like, Bear. When we talked to Bear about what podcast he's listening to and stuff, it's outdoor stuff or some history things to his credit. But like, you've got these varied interests.
Well, I'm old.
Like. How old are you?
I'm 62.
Yeah.
So how it works is. The way you don't get old is by learning, and so I've got lots of varied interests, and art and art history is one of them. Obviously, Italian. I lived in Italy and love Italy, but I just like learning new stuff, and I write for the local newspaper about outdoor stuff.
Oh, cool.
Just did an article about Ferdy Good, who's a birch bark builder up in northern Wisconsin.
Nice.
And what does the newspaper readers care about a birch bark builder? They don't. They care about this really cool guy that found his way through a series of events in his life that he was self-directed and learned to make birch bark boats. So you think about North House Folk School. That's like Mecca for me. I love going there. And I don't even care what class I take. I'm just learning something cool. And being around people who love to learn, that's what keeps you going. So I don't know. I like lots of things. If I could only do one thing the rest of my life, solo canoeing. When people say, what do you like to paddle the most? Well, if I close my eyes and imagine myself in a position, it's in a solo canoe. And I like kayaking. I like sea kayaking. It's great for Lake Superior, but I like paddling solos. Yeah.
Are you seeing new faces at Canoecopia when we're talking about this, like, familiarity and like your solo? That came to my mind because of, like, the solo aspect, and we at a certain point accumulate most of the gear we need. That can continually evolve, or we need another canoe for this specific reason. Kind of the, the sort of the idea of too many boats, as our pal in Nashville, Jerry, would say, right? So there's like that sentiment to it. But are there new faces that come to Canoecopia that are like eyes wide open type thing?
Yeah, people walk in who haven't been in there and just go, oh my gosh. And we've got some friends that we met at church, and he's senior vice president of a giant biotech company, and we talked at church. He's like, what do you know? So I've got an outdoor shop. He's like, cool, yeah. He walked into Canoecopia and he's like, I had no idea. This is what you do? And I'm like, yeah. And the guy's got an MBA from Wharton. He's not. He's a smart dude. He's like, so what are you doing here? I said, thinking bigger than I should, I guess. But I want to create community. And there's a book called Strengths Finder. Have you heard of it before?
No,
it's a cool book. basically people talk about the things that they're bad at.
Okay.
Right? These are my weaknesses I need to get better at.
Yep.
This, you take a test and it goes through and it basically gives you your top 5 things that you're good at. And for me, number 1 was community building. Just, that's how I showed up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm bad at a lot of things. I'm unskilled. The good news is I can hire
Like,
people.
what's something you're bad at?
I suck at accounting.
Uh-huh.
But I've got a really good accountant who's really good at showing me what I need to know and ignoring the stuff that I don't. Mm-hmm. I'm ADD, so I'm bad at detail, but that's okay because I hire people that are good at detail.
Mm-hmm.
So you just fill in where your weaknesses are. But I know my strength is creating and building community, and I do that, one person at a time. Right? That's my best. My best work is one person at a time, and I'm a volunteer hospice chaplain, so I spend time with people who don't have a lot left, right? That's some of my favorite work. I love it because things get really real, right? When it's like, you're gonna die,
yeah,
right? And they know that. And I had a patient who was old and crotchety and addicted to Fox News, and every time I saw him, he's like, "Oh man, I'm really concerned what happens if the Democrats take over," and blah blah blah. I'm like, "Dude, you're gonna be dead before the election. Why are we talking about this? You should watch National Geographic, watch the Puppy Channel, right? Do something that feeds your soul."
Yeah.
He's like, I suppose, which is how Midwestern old man says, "Screw you."
Right.
But I love this guy,
Hmm.
and we had a really strong connection. Just as human to human, even though we had zero in common politically.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a good person, right? And so after I'm not doing rutabaga and Canoecopia anymore, I'm going to be a hospice chaplain.
Right.
So but that's creating community. It's a community of 2, right?
Are you sensing that you're the end of your tenure either with Canoecopia or rutabaga or the stuff we're talking about you kind of keep coming to that in the sense of I'm picking up that maybe you're starting to think about some of this stuff.
Well, exit strategies with outdoor retail shops are very complex.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to walk in, write me a check, and walk out like if I sold widgets, right? Darren's widget company grosses $10 million a year, and their net operating profit is this, and I pay them a multiple of it and buy their thing. It's straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
This is not straightforward, right? How do you sell something like this? Well, usually you find it's more like finding an error, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Is there a financial component to that?
Well, yeah, of course it is. You have to get something for what you build.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the thing that I'm really concerned about. I'm concerned about it continuing to exist. And it won't be exactly the same because it shouldn't be, right? It should be whoever comes in should put their own spin on it. And but it's going to take a long time for this to happen. I'm not just going to pull the switch and say I'm done.
I got it.
But I'm thinking about it. I'm 62, right? And I don't want to be doing this when I'm 75, right?
You don't want to fall into that Joe Biden kind of role of having people go, he's still there. He probably shouldn't be there.
You don't want. You want to leave on your own terms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to. I love the community. I love paddle sports.
Mm-hmm.
I love what I do. I just don't like how much of it there is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to back off, and I'm starting to do that a little bit. Like I'm taking a half day off on Wednesday, which means I leave at 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. Just get a little bit extra time.
I gotcha. Are you? What's your best day that you've ever had at Canoecopia, or a moment that's just like that was just as good as it gets? That was a pinnacle or a peak of some kind, or the stars aligned. That type of.
I wish I had it with me. I have a letter that I received last week, and this is a cool story. So it was 1990, and I was a part-time employee. I had a real job. I was still working in public health, and I was working with boats, and this lady came in and just looking kind of confused, and I just walked over and said, "Hey, what's up?" She said, I'm here to get a canoe." I said, "Cool." She's like, "What I really want is a Jensen 18, but I can't afford one." "Why?" She's like, "Well, I just got divorced, and my husband got in the divorce, and he doesn't even like canoeing." It's like, "Ooh, that's an evil flex, right? And I said, well, someone had traded in a Jensen 18 like an hour before that. I'm like, I think I got a boat for you. And I walked over and said, what about this one? Her eyes got big and she said, oh, I can't afford that. I said, I think you can. And I gave her the price. She's like, oh my gosh, really? I said, yeah. So we got it for her and she was happy, and she left, and the owner was like, you could have sold that for a lot more than that. I'm like, yeah, you need to get out of here right now. You need to leave.
Yeah, you worked the price. You were favorable to her.
She got what she needed. We made a little bit of money, and it's all good. Right?
Yeah.
It's not about maximizing how much you can squeeze out of somebody. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got a letter last week from her.
And this was how long ago?
This is 1990.
Yeah.
And I see her periodically at the show. But she's like, I just want to let you know, I took my last Boundary Waters trip last year. I don't remember how old she is, late 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
And she said, it's time to stop doing that. So I'm selling the boat and donated the money to Friends of the Boundary Waters.
Wow.
And I know, right? And she sold it for twice as much as she paid for it, probably, because
yeah, right.
It's been 30-something years.
Right. The appreciation on a canoe
is just, well, she got it for nothing, so it was it was really
but that's a great story. And she took it meant so much to her, that experience of you not gifting but helping her get that canoe, to write you a letter and acknowledge that as part of the experience of having the canoe.
And not an email, a letter.
Yeah.
Right? I will keep that letter forever, because that's why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is to get people out there. And she said, I just want to thank you for all the years I had paddling, because you were there at that point when I needed you to be there.
Yeah.
And I've got, I don't know how many stories like that where it just worked that way.
And so that's a beautiful sentiment and story, and shows a lot about why you're in this. And this, we kind of are talking about connections to people and community, as you're saying. But what's a hard day, either at Canoecopia, or the process of making this whole thing go, or at the shop, or what's a day that's not so great?
Hard days when you find out interest rates are going up another point.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But it's funny. So Joe Matuska started Aquabound Paddles years and years ago. I mean, just 30 years ago probably. And he's an introvert, but very passionate about paddles. He sold the company to Bending Branches.
Bending Branches, right? Yeah.
He sold it. I said, so what do you do now? He said, never manage people ever again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I totally get that. I have the best staff in the world. They're still people, and there's still conflict, and there's still, people have personal problems, and they struggle with things, and but I love them all, and one of them just quit smoking, and it was like, yay, and big high fives everywhere. And one of the ways you quit smoking is you have to write a letter to cigarettes, every in your journal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dear cigarettes, I hate you. I hate what you've done to me. Mm-hmm. And she said, can I read you some of my cigarette journal? I said, sure. And she read it to me. I'm like, that's awesome, right?
Yeah, right.
So I have, with some of my employees, more of a personal connection. I mean, like I said, I love them all. They're all great people. Otherwise, I wouldn't hire them.
Mm-hmm.
So I try and hire good people that are skilled at canoeing, rather than hiring skilled canoeists and try and make them into the people that I want to work with.
Nice.
Not everybody's, whatever.
Well, to that end, our first year at Canoecopia, which was maybe 2018, 17 or 18 probably, I think was our first year, when we were out in the lobby area, or however you want to think of it, atrium, or however you want to describe that, is that we had to tell some people like where the Boundary Waters was, or show them on the map, like, oh, this is where the Boundary Waters was, where we kind of showed up thinking it was like a Boundary Waters expo or a Boundary Waters kind of event, and it isn't. I mean, there's most of the people know it and have paddled there, BWCA or Canoecopia or both, but not everybody. And I think that that's a unique thing, that this isn't like a Boundary Waters celebration per se. It's a paddling expo.
Right. And it's something interesting. The goal would be to have 90% of the people not know where the Boundary Waters is, because everybody knows why you're there, right? And it's you want people that are new, and you ask, are there new faces? That new speakers, younger speakers, but not as many as the industry needs, because, you know, the boomers are aging out, and people like my friend is selling her canoe and she's not going anymore. But with the younger, you know, Gen X is still in, Gen Z is, the jury's out. They really want more experiences. They don't do a lot of wilderness tripping. So the numbers for what people are doing more and more younger is not great for the industry. And so there's two things I can do. Number one is throw my hands up in the air and say, crap, we're screwed. Or I can say, okay, we need to go find and create new paddlers. So I'm, again, targeting specifically the people that I think need us the most, not the people that are going to make us the most money.
Yeah.
So the customer that needs me the most, needs us the most, is somebody who's 35 years old, 37 years old, married couple, whatever, who have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. What do you do with a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old outside? You can't climb, you can't mountain bike, you can't hike. They're not unable to keep up with the adults. A canoe is the perfect place for a family with kids that age, right? And we do have people come in all the time. It's like, yeah, what do I do? I'm like, don't get kayaks. You know, you need to get a canoe because, number one, you're gonna have the same problem with kayaks. You get 2 little kayaks for the kids, you're gonna be dragging them, right? So one of the things you can do to get your family outside more is paddle. And when people get that, they go, oh yeah, totally, right? And for every person that comes in my shop and gets a canoe and has that demographic, and I'll add to that grandparents, what I do with my grandkids, it's like, yes, we have to do with them, right? So a lot of our customers are doing that. For every person that comes in and does that, there's 20 that don't, right? So instead of saying, oh, the demographics, you know, aging and blah, 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 it's like, no, I need to go find people and tell them how this is gonna make their lives better. It's not just, you need to sell more product. It's like, yeah, I do, right? But the big thing is, how do you make people's lives better? You know, and paddling, no one's ever paddled and said, man, my life sucks more, right? It doesn't work that way. Right? Everybody loves to be out. If you show them and give them the tools, you change lives. And I have a billion stories. This is a good one. A woman came in the shop, said, hey, I love canoeing. I love to be outside. I love to do all this outdoor stuff. My husband is a computer programmer who uses his body to hold his brain in place. He's not an outdoors guy. He's not an active guy. I want to do these things and I can't do it. He doesn't want to do it. It's like, okay, that's fine. That's their relationship and it works. But she doesn't want to not do things because of that, right? So we get her a solo canoe and she gets in it. She paddles around. I said, you know what? Let's take some time. She was like 1 stroke on each side and didn't know how to paddle. I said, it was close to the end of the day, and I said, why don't we just stay after work and I'll give you a little lesson. So we paddled for an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. She got a J-stroke down, rudimentary J-stroke, rudimentary draws and pries, and could make the boat do what she wanted to do. Maybe not perfectly and not gracefully, but she could make it work. And she got out. I reached down to pick up the boat. I take the boat, I pick it up, and I put it on the grass. I turn around and she grabs me and just hugs me. She said, you just changed my life. Thank you. Well, how do you beat that, right? When you go to the hardware store and buy a toilet seat, it's not like, oh, you just changed my life. I can make quite a bit more if I decided to sell things that people need every day, right? I mean, this is why S.C. Johnson is a multi-billion-dollar company, is they sell toothpaste. Our stuff lasts too long, right? We make stuff that lasts. You know, people trade in boats that are from 1975. I've got 3 wood canvas boats. One of them was built in 1929. What are you gonna do, right? So the only way to grow the sport is to get new people to come into it. And the only way to do that is to show them what it really is rather than what they think. Well, I paddled before. I was a Boy Scout. It's like, okay, I'll teach you anyway, right? So what they know is being cold and wet and unprepared. It's like, why do I want to do this again? So if we can educate them, getting back to what Canoecopia does, they're going to have a better experience. They're going to do it more. They're going to tell their friends to do it. They're going to take their friends. And that's how you grow the sport, is to teach people to have good experiences instead of bad ones.
And even one of the things we're going to be doing there this year, Paddle and Portage, and with our friend Aaron Walker from the Lost Lakes YouTube channel, is telling people how to share those experiences in a way that brings people in. And I know some of the YouTubers that's like a platform for their channel is the educational component. So we're excited to be down there with Aaron and talk Saturday morning about that to the community and on our speaker time slot that we have with Aaron. Did you get to check out? Have you seen any of Aaron's stuff?
Yeah, I watched the one about his knee.
Yeah.
So I love that, because here's a guy who's out there and his patella locks up.
Yep.
And he can't straighten his leg, and it's 15 below, and he went, well, okay.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't crack open the beacon, because who knows if a helicopter can land when it's 30-mile-an-hour winds on a 15 below lake, right?
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna have to deal with this. And his sweetheart wife pulled him out on a sled.
Yeah, Aaron, right?
Yeah, and it was not like, oh, I almost died. Mm-hmm. Those are the YouTube channels I hate. It's like, I went out and did this thing, and I did it, and you can't, because you're not as cool as I am.
The overly dramatic, the hardcore, and you wish you could do this.
Yep.
They aren't. They don't present their channel that way, which is
that's why I like them.
Exactly.
It's like, well, we have a problem, we have to solve it. They're showing reality, but they're also showing what having the skills and the right equipment and the right skills can get you out of that stuff with the right skills, right mental attitude, all that thing. If that happened to some people, they'd like, well, push the button on the beacon and hope, but we'll just solve the problem.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that we're going to be talking about, is that incident situation specifically. Aaron's wrote an article for Paddle and Portage about that experience as well, and so Saturday morning we'll be talking about that. And you mentioned Cliff and his lengthy time slot, or appropriately for his last Canoecopia. So I know you're excited about that, and other people we've talked to too. Other presenters or things that for 2025 that just like are a can't miss in your book, or that you're excited about, anything new, something like that?
All of them. I mean, the thing is, I don't actually do the speaker schedule and the planning. Chloe does that.
Yep.
And so what I looked at the speakers, like the applicants, like 2-3 months ago, went through them and said, these guys are all great. If I didn't know them, I Googled them and stuff like that. There was nobody in there that I wouldn't want there. And then I looked at the schedule last week, and it was on post-its on poster board, and went, a couple people we moved around. I said, maybe we shouldn't have those people at the same time. Let's swap them. She said, okay.
Yep.
But 99% of it was done, and it was perfect.
Nice.
So I'm tangentially familiar with most of the speakers. The ones that really stuck out, I don't remember their names, because that's not. I'm trying to stay in my lane, right?
Right.
I trust her, and she did a great job.
Cool.
So, but there's always new topics. Kevin Callan's coming. He always comes, but he's talking about new things, right? Not just the same thing over and over again.
Nice.
So that's good. There's some younger folks that are coming that I'm really excited to hear. And again, if I had my notes, I could tell you who they are.
Well, it'll all be available public. I mean, as the media partner, we're going to be sharing a lot of this on our platform too. And so just stay tuned for more information about the specifics of the scheduling aspect of Canoecopia. But it's the 7th through the 9th of March.
Yep.
If somebody wants to get a ticket or attend, how do they do that?
Just go to rutabaga.com and click on the Canoecopia button, and you can buy your tickets. And they're a little bit discounted leading into it, so you get a little bit of a deal. You had to raise the price this year for the first time in 7 years, I think. But the hall goes up 4% a year no matter what. It's just built into the price.
The Alliant Energy Center. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so people can get tickets in advance. They can also show up.
Yeah, they just show up. It's a few bucks more, but that happens. I mean, we still, majority of our tickets are sold at the door.
And can you get an individual day if I'm coming only Saturday because of my work schedule or whatever? That's
so
cool.
yeah, so if you buy one day, it's this price. If you buy 2 days, it's the same price as 3 days
Mm-hmm.
because we want people to, stay for another day if they want to. You can buy a Friday, a Saturday, a Sunday, or a Friday, Saturday, or a Saturday, Sunday, or all three.
I got it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, we're excited to be there, Darren. I really appreciate hearing some of your stories and the past of Rutabaga, Canoecopia, your experiences, running in a backstay on the Portage, all these things that just continue to build a foundation for a professional and personal relationship that here, with Bear, actually myself now, like, we know you, and it's an important relationship, and we really appreciate it.
Who's your other investor?
Ann Passos is our other investor.
I don't know her.
Yeah, you maybe, if you when you're at North
right?
House or when you were up at the radio, you maybe would have, communicated with her. She is such a supporter and somebody who thinks critically about the content that we're creating. She's also our copy editor and does a fantastic, like A+ kind of copy editor, which is so valuable to have. And is somebody who's intrigued by Canoecopia. It hasn't been over yet, but like is somebody that's so helpful to have along with Bear as we're talking about the future of Paddle and Portage and this boost from being the media partner of Canoecopia, Darren. Like, it's a big deal to us. I know I'm kind of downplaying it here on the podcast a little bit, but like, it's a big deal, and we appreciate it so much. And Bear and I can't say enough about how much that meant to us to have that offer extended. So